and welcome to our inaugural episode of Survivor Hot Takes. I'm Coach Drew. You guys
Finally!
may have seen me on the Survivor Buffs with Adam and Gideon. I have Adam and Gideon here to, work with me for this first episode in defense of Redemption Island, and we'll get to all that fun stuff in a little bit. But Adam and Gideon, what do you guys have coming up soon?
You want to tell them?
Yeah, sure. All right, so coming up for the Survivor Buffs is our interview with Mama C, the famed player. She's awesome, and it was a great interview. It was really in depth. We talked a lot of sports, but I also got into some strategy there. So it was a really good interview. So be looking out for that. When's it coming, Adam?
Saturday.
Yeah, check that out. Saturday. Check that out Saturday.
And when's the next episode for you guys' tier list special?
Thursday.
Next. Oh yeah. This Thursday now.
Yeah.
So, the way that the show is usually going to go is because I'm very aware that Survivor Reddit is a cesspool, and I understand that Survivor Twitter is even worse sometimes. And in the org community, people have all types of hot takes. It's amazing. So what I want to do is take a lot of the things that I read on these mediums and just come on here or argue against them, because that's where the fun comes from. It's from getting into healthy debates about these things. Hopefully, just healthy debates. Hopefully, we're not chewing each other's heads off. Whenever we do have the Marquesas episode, Gideon, I'll be glad to have you back on. We'll go at it. If you guys ever want to talk about All Stars, this will be your forum at this point, because I can't go over that All Stars in the A tier from you guys' show. But Redemption Island.
What did you want it as?
Like a C or a D. But I would have been cool with putting it as a C.
When you said D, man,
All Stars is horrible. All Stars is oh my god. This isn't about All Stars. This is about Redemption Island, which also has Boston Rob.
Yes.
And it's funny because,
and so does Marquesas. There's a theme here.
Marquesas. The seasons where I like Boston Rob, I usually enjoy the season as well. And the seasons that I don't like Boston Rob, primarily Redemption Island and All Stars, it's like, okay, I get it. But Redemption Island. So I think most people put Redemption Island between 40 and like 38.
Wow.
It's just whenever you look at people's rankings, you see it always showing at the very bottom, and I've never understood that. Now, I mean, personally, I have it like 35, so it's not like it's that much higher, but I do feel like there are, off the top of my head, 2 worse seasons in that, Thailand and Island of the Idols. And so when people put Redemption Island lower sometimes than both of them, I see a real core, but there's actually nothing wrong with Redemption Island at all, the season at all, besides the fact that it's boring. There's a lot of boring seasons of Survivor. I don't think that this is necessarily the most boring season. What were you guys' first thoughts on Redemption Island when you first watched it, whether when it first debuted or when you first watched it, later in life?
I'll go. So it was actually one of the first seasons that I can remember actually watching and remembering like what actually happened, and like sitting on my couch every Wednesday watching it. I vaguely remember Heroes versus Villains, so I knew who Boston Rob was. But Redemption Island is the first vivid memory I have of Survivor, and I just remember really liking it because I liked Boston Rob and I liked Philip, and those are still 2 of my favorite players. And that's why for the longest time I would tout out saying, "Oh, Redemption Island is the best season, just hands down. Like it's the greatest season of all time. It's the Boston Rob show. I love it. I love Philip.
It is the Boston Rob show.
It is, and that's why I liked it as a kid." Now moving on to today, as I've gotten more into this community and as I rewatched and looking at all the seasons as a whole, and actually becoming I wouldn't say I'm a very educated Survivor commentator, certainly not to your level, Drew, but I definitely definitely have it's hurt it in my rankings, just because, yes, looking back at it in terms of content and in terms of just watchability, maybe it isn't the greatest. I still do like it. Like, that still hasn't gone away. But I used to think it was the greatest of all time. So at least I've matured a little bit.
Where would you put it now?
I would still put it, honestly, I would still put it top 25.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Sue me.
Yeah, when I first watched it, I watched it live, and I was coming into the season super anticipated because the rivalry between Rob and Russell in Heroes and Villains up until that point was like my personal favorite rivalry that I'd ever seen, because I was a little too young for like Colby, Jerry, or like even
Terry
Hatch and
Aris.
Sue. Terry Aris. Yeah, my first season that I like that I remember watching like clearly was Guatemala. So I remember a little bit of Terry Aris. I mean, now I know, I've gone back and rewatched it. But anyway, coming into Redemption Island, I was like so pumped because Rob and Russell were probably my two favorites. So when they clashed on Heroes and Villains, I was like, oh, this is like, the coolest like clash. I felt like the battle of like the Titans of Survivor clashing. And then Probst teased it. He said at the reunion of Heroes and Villains, oh, maybe we should have a whole season dedicated to your guys' rivalry. So coming into the Redemption Island, I was like, okay, this is going to be Russell and his like come from behind idol plays, tricks sort of thing, to Rob, as far as pre-merge, to Rob, with his whole, because the mafioso Rob didn't really exist until Heroes and Villains was the first time we teased it. He wasn't really like mafioso.
He was an All-Stars.
See, I didn't see that in All Stars. I saw him as kind of like in an alliance with a bunch of everyone was kind of equal. It's just that he was smart enough to create the alliance with a bunch of like players that didn't know how to play. So he learned how to like kind of manipulate them and shift the votes. I didn't see his All Stars game as him being like a controlling Godfather mafioso type person. I saw him to me personally, but I could understand the argument. But the point I was trying to make was, I thought it was going to be Russell and his, the 2 or 3 women he always manages to pull, and then like Russell and then Rob with his team, and then it would clash at the merge, and the season just wasn't that at all. Rob was pretty much the king from the start. Russell was second voted off on his tribe, due to them throwing the challenge. So what I came into the season thinking it was going to be wasn't that. And then from that point on, it was just, I don't remember what your original question was, Drew, but just any question that involves Redemption Island is not going to get a pleasurable response. So I'll wait for your next question before I tear it to shreds.
And this is where I'm going with it. I guess my first point is, if you binge watch Survivor, as I do, and you get to Redemption Island, by that point you're kind of done with Russell. Like, I'm done. Like, because it happened, you have so much Russell in such a small space. It's like, okay, and so it's not a knock on him, but like seeing the emotional Russell when he loses at Redemption Island was like the first part of the season. Oh, actually, no, the first part of the season that I really enjoyed was the first episode, because you see these two different dynamics on the Zapatera and Ometepe beaches, where you have one where everyone's like, yeah, Rob, like everyone loves Rob, and then you have the other tribe where it's like, Russell, I don't know, except for a couple of people who immediately become his disciples.
Right.
But then you get to that first tribal with Francesca and Philip, and the whole thing with the idol, and you're just sitting there like, wow, this is going to be a lot of fun, especially if this Philip person stays, which thank goodness he stayed, because we wouldn't have gotten crazy Philip. And I do think that he was putting on an act, a lot of an act, but it I feel like it helps that season, except for something that we'll get to later involving my name on here. But then we get to Russell on Redemption Island, and he loses, and he cries, and he says, "This is the end of my Survivor career," blah blah blah. And it's like, wow, I feel like I'm actually gonna miss this guy now, because I do feel like he's done. Now, is he actually done? Wait and see, I guess. But at the time, I was like,
Probably
this
not.
is the end of an era. This is the end of an era. As far as pre-merge, that's pretty much the last episode that I actually cared about. We'll get to the merge aspect in a second, but how did you guys feel about the pre-merge of Redemption Island and the twist and the Redemption Island twist?
I agree
Hated it.
that pre-merge was boring. Yes, I agree. Especially after Russell went, and it was hard to watch him go, but it is what it is.
Yeah, character-wise, I mean, like, Philip is great, but other than that, there was a couple, like, potentially great characters, like
Grant?
Matt.
Matt Elrod
Matt,
is amazing. He's amazing.
I mean, yeah.
Wyatt
it's
Nash
just,
is a great actor, so.
and Ralph also, I think, like, had the potential to be a great character. It's just they pushed those guys so much to the side, unless it was Matt on his, like, Redemption Island journey that ultimately led to him losing to Andrea. Super anticlimactic. I know your question was about pre-merge, but yeah, pre-merge. You know, again, like you said, great first episode. Had a, the Russell moment kind of made me think, oh wow, this is not the season I thought I was about to start watching. Even though it was like a nice, what we thought was a cap to his career. Maybe not like if you're a diehard Russell fan and you want him to win.
Yeah,
but,
maybe if you're not Russell, but you know,
or Russell himself, obviously. But or Jeff. Like I can't imagine Jeff was too happy about.
No, I bet Jeff was pissed.
Yeah. He was like, "Oh, great!"
Not the reunion. At the reunion, he was hyping up the seasons, like one of the greatest seasons we've ever had. I'm like, well,
I feel like
He
when
has
he
to
says
say
that, I feel like when Jeff says that, it's a good indication that it was not a good season. Because when
I
it's
feel like he said something similar
he-
about Island of the Idol.
yeah,
no,
exactly. He doesn't.
I do not think he said that.
He definitely said that for Karamoan. Definitely said it for Karamoan, which is not a good season. And whenever a heroes and villains happens or a Micronesia happens, he never says it. He's just like, "Great season, guys," because we don't need that reaffirmation. He gives it to us, so that's your indication. But pre-merge, yeah, from that point on, it's just a pretty basic dynamic over on Ometepe, where it's like once Russell's gone, it's like, okay, let's get rid of the two girls now, and then they do get rid of the two girls. Side note, I think Stephanie Valencia would be a great, like, forgotten player who would be a good returnee.
Absolutely.
I feel like she was kind of like flew so under because of her alliance with Russell, but I thought she was thinking,
And she
was
fought to
thinking.
stay after Russell was gone.
Yeah.
They ended up keeping her an extra round, basically,
Right.
because of that.
Yeah, and then on Zapatera, it was just like the Rob show. It was like, and here's where and again, I don't claim to be a guy who has like a bunch of inside Survivor knowledge. I'm not that person at all, but I have gotten a chance to talk to a few Redemption Island people, and what at least two people have told me is that, well, one, it's this is anyone could find out, is that. Besides Russell and Rob, I think of the 18 remaining players, I think either 15 or 16 had never watched a season of Survivor before. Mm-hmm. So they were all recruits and had no idea how to play. When you are a recruit, again, this is just what I heard from two people who were on the season and other seasons for this first bit. And I know I mentioned this to Gideon a few times, but
yeah, go ahead, give the speech, Adam.
When you are a recruit, they obviously want you to at least know how the game works, as far as like tribal council, you vote someone out, what an idol is, what flushing an idol is. Like you need to know the basics to at least play, because they don't want like even Rodney had never seen a season, but like they had to train him enough to like at least know how the game works. So to teach you how the game works, when you were at pre-Ponderosa, they
Show
give
videos of
you
seasons, right?
videos
show
of
you-
seasons. So guess what videos
Yeah.
they gave for all of the recruits on Redemption Island? They gave them 3 seasons. They gave them Marquesas, they gave them All-Stars, and they gave them Heroes versus Villains. And specifically from both the two people who I asked about this said the same thing. They specifically told them, watch out for Boston Rob Mariano. So when it came time to when it came time to play the game, like, oh, this is this guy that, obviously he's such a great player, obviously knows how to get to the ends. They they gravitated towards him. And the people who weren't recruits on that season, every single one, when you come into the show, you have to ask, who is your favorite player? All the non-recruits had listed their favorite player as Boston Rob. Every single one of them. If there was a season that was ever handed to someone on a silver platter to win, it was this season. The only thing holding him back would have been Russell, and they threw a challenge.
And I think that's a knock that the season has, is that, the conspiracy theorists out there think that it was just overly rigged. I don't believe that a season has ever been rigged. I do think that they try to stack the deck for people. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But they didn't Rob didn't have to pull out the buff that he did. And if he had, and he ends up on Russell's tribe, I don't feel like they would have tried to vote him out first anyway, because Rob's, as much of a villain that he is about keeping the tribe strong, like keeping everything going, winning these challenges, blah blah blah. He's not out looking for idols and everything. I think that the same situation probably would have happened if they had ended up on opposite tribes. It just so happened that Rob walked into the younger pretty people tribe, and they fell under his spell very early, and that was game over. And Russell had the older people that were just like, no, we can't play with him, we got to get rid of him, period.
Right.
And that was like the last bit of strategy that we got in the season, because that wasn't Boston Rob. And every time, so we hit the merge, and from my perspective, it's one of the greatest merge episodes, period. And I think it's probably the last good episode of the season, because you have Matt Elrod coming back from Redemption Island, and he's kind of pissed, but he's got Jesus on his side, and Jesus talks to him and tells him that he doesn't want him to vote out Boston Rob after he's told the tribe in the minority, the sort of minority, hey, I'm gonna ride with you guys. And then he tells Rob, hey, yeah, I was thinking about voting you out. And Rob's just like, well, this guy's got to go. And so that tribal where Matt goes, it's exciting, just mainly based off the fact you're looking at this poor kid have to go back. And he's doing all right for himself now. Wyatt Nash is doing all right for himself now. But at that time, it's like, yeah, I think Julie says that poor kid, yeah, he's got to go through all of this again. And then, like you said, Andrea takes him out. And, Andrea at this point is just Andrea. Like in Redemption Island, she's just Andrea. She isn't Andrea Belke, plays 3 seasons. Most votes ever casted against a single person, Andrea. She's just, and that is one of the positives that I see out of the season is you get Philip and you get Andrea out of this, and I do hope that they would bring back Philip a third time, and Andrea has done well in every single season that she has played in.
Oh, they won't. Philip's done. Philip's done.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, that's his hope. Then come on.
Let us hope.
There's no hope.
Shut up, Adam.
You'll get Rudy back first.
I see what you did there. So you get these characters, and yes, if you were to ask a casual fan to name 5 people from Redemption Island that are not Rob, Russell, or be able to do that. And I do think that's a knock on the season as well, is the fact that they are, they don't have that cast of characters that you get in Tocantins, or Gabon, or any season prior to that. Even Nicaragua, I'm pretty sure people can name 5 people from it if they really tried. And I do feel like that's a knock on it, but I do think that it's fun if you just turn off your brain a little bit, watching Boston Rob control these people the entire game. And by the time people like Ashley, yeah, it's Ashley, and
Yeah.
people like Andrea try to flip the game, he's got so much control over everyone that it does not matter. You can't do, and it's Kim Spradlin-esque, except for Kim was playing with a whole bunch of newbies and was also a newbie, and you have Boston Rob who's playing his 5th time. But I don't think that it was predetermined that he was going to win the game. And I think that it's somewhat silly when people do say that, for not even just him, when people say that
Cochran.
Ben, that it was rigged for Ben to win. I'm like, why Ben?
They always say that about Cochran too.
Well, yeah, but even Cochran, like, until Philip left, I feel like Philip was kind of like, I was looking at Philip as a potential winner on Caramone.
Yeah, I was
looking
too.
at Andrea as a potential winner. I was looking at Malcolm.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until all of them were Reynolds. Yeah,
The
Reynolds.
underdog. The underdog. Yeah.
So, and I think another thing that it has a plus for. Now we're gonna get to the Rice Wars right quick. Yes, that was very uncomfortable to watch, all around, black, white, Asian, whatever. But in one of the few times on the show where they actually have a good debate about a topic at Tribal, as compared to like Island of the Idols, where they're talking about all this stuff at Tribal, and it's like, wow, this is. I feel like these people are colorblind, or like I don't feel like they understand what's going on. But in this debate with Philip, and he's telling Probst about all this stuff, I feel like Probst actually sits there and he actually listens and he actually understands, which is a plus in my opinion. How did you guys feel about Rice Wars?
I think it hurt the season because I don't feel like it was a justified meltdown. Like anytime there's a fight, like Sandra and Fair Play, where like it totally makes sense what led up to it, and like it felt like a real fight. Like it didn't just feel like it was two like kind of off people going at it. I mean, although it was clearly more Brandon. I feel like he just misunderstood and like took things personal that 95% of the U.S. population would not have taken personal. Like giving someone a nickname is for some reason a bad thing when it was clearly just for fun and games.
No.
So,
okay, keep going.
I was just gonna say that everything that led up to that like meltdown and that whole Rice Wars thing happening, it didn't feel like the build up matched what we got. Yeah. Whereas like the most other like iconic Survivor like fights or clashes have that build up, and I just feel like we didn't get that. So that was another moment that I was just like, what did we just see?
Mm-hmm.
All right, get in before
I wanted Philip to go in.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like the whole Rice Wars thing, yeah, as you said, uncomfortable. As a kid, I was just like, Philip's going crazy. Classic Philip. But then, watching it now, I know, that was me as a kid. And then but then obviously watching it now just recently, it is uncomfortable. Him talking about, oh, you called me crazy. Oh, like that's the equation of you using the N-word against me. I was just like a bit of a stretch, but okay. Like but yeah, it definitely put a big blemish on the season. And like, I know how some people enjoy blow-ups on Survivor. Like when we were talking to Johnny Fairplay, he was like, "Oh no, I enjoyed Brandon's blow-up on Carabo, and like that was awesome. Like that was epic moment." And I was like, to me, like I was seeing a guy who was mentally insane go insane.
Walk out of the room.
Yeah, I know exactly. Like that's uncomfortable, and I got the same feeling there as well. Like I was just like, Philip, like, man, you're kind of off your rocker with this one, So
okay, so and this is my rationale behind the Phil thing.
Okay,
do I think that he probably overreacted to being called crazy? Yes, but I understood where he was coming from. Obviously, I I wouldn't equate it to someone, thinking of another word.
Hmm.
But I also understand that, like, it's not a secret. Diversity sucks on the show. And so when you are the only one for a long time, because Francesca left
Yeah.
day 3 or something like
Mhm.
that. So when you're the only one there, you do start to get a bit just like paranoid because you don't have that one thing that you can bond with other people with. So I personally didn't take offense to it, but I wasn't Philip on day whatever in the middle of Nicaragua, um, with all of these people. So I don't agree with it. And I'm glad that we can laugh about it now. I guess, do people laugh about that? But watching
I
it,
kind of cringe. I kind of like cringe and
I
nervous
cringe.
laugh.
Yeah,
I'm like, but
why?
you
So we
That's me for the whole
we're
season.
know.
so we're dealing with this merge, and we know at a certain point it's like, okay, Rob's gonna win. There's no way they're gonna flip it on him because he has 2 loyal soldiers of Natalie and Grant, and he has and like blow everyone's minds, which he doesn't. I feel like Philip got worse at final because he's kept shutting everyone down, and I do feel like watching it's almost Gabon esque as far as watching this car crash happen, and it's like, wow, I can't believe they're not actually going to take him out. And so you get to the final tribal, and really all Rob has to do there is say thank you to everyone. It's been fun, blah blah blah, because they tore into Natalie for some reason, and they tore into Philip for big reasons. And he actually still gets a vote. File gets a vote from Ralph. Ralph votes for File, and Rob gets the win. And the cringiest part of the entire season, but also a part of the season that I love, even though I can't actually sit and watch, is the reunion. And do you guys know where I'm going with this, with the reunion?
I don't think I do.
Yeah, it's been a bit since I've seen it. You have to refresh my memory.
Okay. So they come back from their last commercial break, or
Yeah.
maybe second to last, and Probst is going and asking people, like, what have you been up to? Oh, cool, yeah, whatever. And he gets David Murphy. And
Oh
he's like,
yeah, the proposal.
No.
and he's like, David Murphy, blah blah blah, and like you could tell that they had planned this between the two of them, or maybe like production too, but Carolina, it didn't seem like Carolina knew, and it didn't seem like David remembered what was supposed to happen because they're going back and forth, and Probst is like, "So, do you want to do something?" And David's like, "Yeah, blah blah." And he's like, "So, you're gonna do it?" And so David, saunters off to the stands, and he proposes Carolina, and you can hear Carolina saying, "Don't do this. Don't like no," and almost feels pressured into saying yes, and they don't stay together much longer after that. But that's just the encapsulation of the entire season. It's just such a car crash, but you have to sit there and watch it because it's like it's almost like watching Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Yeah.
where Curb Your Enthusiasm is so uncomfortable to watch, but I love it. And I will
Yeah.
sit there and watch every single episode, even though I have to like cover my face like this, like it's a horror movie. Redemption Island was like that in certain places when it wasn't just Rob. And I understand why people put it as low as they do. Like I said, it's like 35 or 36 with me. But
It's 39 on Rob as a podcast.
yes, right in front of Island of the Idols and right behind Thailand. And I just recently went back and listened to the Thailand podcast, and I can't remember who he had on there, but they were basically saying, I don't understand how Redemption Island is below this because Thailand and Island of the Idols, in my opinion, are just straight garbage. Even if you look past the uncomfortable stuff that happens on the season, it's just not good. They're just not good at all. And so people putting Redemption Island below them in certain situations is like, okay, is it really that bad? Or do you guys just hate the fact that you knew Rob was going to win from the beginning? Because if that's the case, get over it.
Yeah, there's one thing about Redemption Island I wanted to say, and I agree with you. I don't think it was rigged. The only season that I honestly think had any actual like rigging was the first season, Borneo. Maybe we can go into that on a separate podcast. Like
I
them,
think I know what I'm referring to.
yeah. Oh gosh, talk to Joel and some of the guys who didn't make it all the way to the end, and they'll tell you it's some crazy stuff that happened on Borneo, like going to players and saying "Do not vote for Rudy." But anyway, I don't think Redemption, huh?
America's sweetheart, Rudy.
Yeah, I don't think that Redemption Island was rigged. I also don't think it's possible for Survivor to rig a winner. Like that's pretty tough to do. But do I think that there was a lot of things that Survivor did that helped him win, that kind of set a great foundation for him? I think it's any sane person would say yes to that answer.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think a lot of people like Redemption Island isn't that it's like, oh, it has this. You know, most of the beloved seasons are beloved because you can name so many things that make it great. Anyone who's like a strong Redemption Island fan, I feel like the biggest thing they can say is, oh, it was just a perfect, flawless game. And seeing Rob's game just play out, like he would say something was going to happen, it would happen. He would say his plan, he would do his plan, you would see his plan, and then it would work to perfection. So if you're watching it that way, I can see why people say it's a great season. But when you realize all the things that helped him, like, you know, being a 3-time player, playing in 2 All-Star seasons, the only 2 All-Star seasons up until that point.
If you don't
and then
count Micronesia, if you don't count Micronesia, oh well, I guess okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
We can't really count that, I guess, because there's half
half All-Star.
All-Star season.
Yeah. When you consider what he came in with and who his competition was, I think you realize how many things take away from Rob's win, and when his win then doesn't appear as great. Not that it was a bad win. I mean, when we did our winners tier rank, I still put his win in A, didn't I, Gideon?
You did, to my not liking.
Yeah. So I still think it's a good win, but I think when you consider all the things that he was given by Survivor production to aid that win, I think his win doesn't seem as anywhere near as great. And when his win doesn't seem anywhere near as great, the season doesn't seem as great. Because I definitely didn't hate it as much when I was like a casual fan watching the first time or rewatching a second time or third time or whatever. But now, like in the last year or two, as I'm learning these things and talking to players who were on the season and, you know, being on Survivor Reddit's, the cesspool, as you mentioned, it's tough to love the season. If I had to put it somewhere, I would put it above Thailand. I would put it above Island of the Idols. Beyond that,
yeah, I hate being I hate no longer being a casual. I think I've upgraded from casual once I started this show, because it definitely knocked this down a lot for me. It's talking to Adam and talking to other survivors that were, and what Adam's got from the other survivors, and you know, actually digging into it. It definitely lessens the season. I definitely think it's still overhated. But
I think it's the second best Redemption Island season. Of the 3 Redemption Island seasons we got, I think it's the second best. Only because, so in Redemption Island, Rob has his cult. Okay, cool, whatever. In South Pacific, you have a religious cult that is, because he's just constantly being, and this is not a knock on religion, but you're constantly being, oh yeah, it's God helping us through this game and blah blah blah, and coach is like spouting this to these people,
and then there's Sophie the atheist sitting there having to
and I'm loving it. My favorite part of South Pacific is at Final Tribal when she tells Brandon and everyone else, like, oh yeah, you remember how we prayed to find that idol? Coach or Albert already had it in their pocket, so it was just pretend. and Brandon's mind was just blown. Like, what? Like, God
Yeah.
didn't find that for us. So I think that so I think that South Pacific is the worst Redemption Island season, and even then, I don't think that it's number 38. Like, there are things that are actually bad. Redemption Island is just boring, and there's nothing wrong with boring. Sometimes you want to just put on a season of Survivor and just
Yeah,
watch.
if you're brain dead, then probably Redemption Island will be your favorite.
Yeah, if you're brain dead, if you're brain dead.
Jeez.
But and we're gonna wrap things up in a second. Final thoughts, guys. If you had to give it a rating out of 5, what would you say Redemption Island is?
It's 1 to 5.
Wow,
It's
okay.
1 to 5.
Okay,
Okay.
1. Okay.
All right. I would give it a light 3. A light 3.
I mean, I give it a 1.5, so it's not like it's not like it's. I'm giving it a 1.5, but that's because of the characters that we have gotten to come back, Philip and Andrea. I think that's it.
I love the characters. I'm a big character guy. I like the characters that come out of Redemption Island. Philip's one of the greatest characters to ever grace television, other than his counterpart Coach. And I love
Francesca
watching
came
Rob.
back too.
Yeah,
And
she did.
and Francesca.
I'm not even a
And
big
Rob.
yeah.
Rob
Yeah.
came back technically.
He did. Well, yeah, not just technically. He did come back and win his war.
So yeah, the I guess what we are trying to say about Redemption Island as a season is we understand that it's a horrible season. We get it. It's bad. Whatever. Is it the worst season that's ever happened? No. Is it the second worst season that's ever happened? Also, mid-30s? Yes. Like you can't put, I mean, I know Gideon has it in his top 25, but you can't put it among the greats. And I'm not here to say that it is. I'm just saying next time you watch Redemption Island, you know, turn your brain off a little bit. You just a little bit.
Do that.
Because you have South Pacific coming right afterwards. And so we'll be back next week. We will put out what we're going to be doing moving forward. Like Adam and Gideon says, they have 2 episodes coming out in the coming weeks. They're doing their next tier ranking of seasons 11 through 20. And then they're interviewing Mama C on Saturday.
Yes.
So watch out for that. Make sure you guys subscribe to Reality Pop. Hit the little bell. And we'll see you guys next time. And we're out. Oh, shoot.